When you think of the greatest investors of all time, Warren Buffett's name is probably right at the top. But his legendary results didn't just come from luck. They came from a really clear set of principles. In this explainer, we're going to unpack his 6 core rules for investing. So, just how powerful is his strategy? Get this, if you had invested just $1,000 in his company, Berkshire Hathaway, way back when he first took it over, you would have over $21 million today. Yep, you heard that right. Not a typo. $21 million. And here's how he pulled that off year after year. For decades, Buffett has averaged a whopping 20% annual return. Now, to put that into perspective, that consistently doubles the S&P 500's average of 10%. This isn't about getting lucky once or twice. We're talking about a long-term philosophy that just wins. So, what's the secret sauce? All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the mindset behind that incredible $21 million result. Then, we'll dive into what to own, how to choose your investments, how to act when you see an opportunity, and finally, what Buffett considers your ultimate, most important asset. Okay, first up, let's get into the mindset behind these kinds of results. It's not just about picking stocks, It's a whole philosophy for turning what starts as a small bet into an absolute fortune. So that leads us right into our next big topic, which covers Buffett's first 2 rules. And it all boils down to one pretty simple question. What should you actually own? And this brings us to rule number 1, and honestly, this one catches a lot of people off guard. Holding on to a bunch of surplus cash is a huge mistake. Buffett says cash is like oxygen. You need some to survive, for sure, but hoarding extra tanks doesn't actually do you any good. Why? Well, because that idle cash isn't out there working for you. It produces nothing. And Buffett himself nails the reason why. Inflation is a fact of life, which means your cash is pretty much guaranteed to lose its purchasing power over time. As he says, the dollar will be worth less. Maybe not worthless, but the trend is definitely down. So if cash is a no-go, then what's the alternative? Well, that leads us straight to rule number 2. Instead of holding an asset that's just melting away in value, you want to own assets that are productive, things that actually create value over time. Buffett has this fantastic analogy to make this crystal clear. Imagine you owned all the gold in the world, a giant shiny cube. What does it do? Nothing. It just sits there. Its only value comes from the hope that some other person will pay you more for it down the road. Now contrast that with a working farm. You buy a farm because you expect it to deliver crops year after year. That is a productive asset, and that's the kind of investment Buffett loves. Okay, so we want productive assets.